Misandrist losers.
When it comes to decentering men, it goes beyond just your own personal romantic relationships with men. It also goes to your sons. And one thing that I've noticed, a lot of women will get on this app and they'll say things like, oh, I cooked dinner for me and my husband, boyfriend, fiance, whatever, and it should have lasted us 2 to 3 days, including like having enough to take for lunch, yada, 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 yada. But he ate it all in one setting. So it wasn't even enough for me to pack for lunch or have leftovers. And you'll have women in the comments that are like, well, that's why I pack my food, my lunch before I even serve up dinner. You shouldn't even have to do that. But then on the other side of that, I would see women on this app talking about how, a prime example, a lady, she made spaghetti. Her son fixed his plate. He had enough spaghetti to feed 3 people and 6 pieces of garlic bread. He was a teenager, but he's a child. All of this behavior is learned. He didn't just become an adult and become super selfish like that. He's been selfish his entire life. And he's been enabled to be selfish. Y'all were raised selfish boys and then be surprised when they are selfish grown adult men. And that's the part that I'm not quite understanding. That's the part that I'm not quite understanding.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. You can support uncensored conversations via Cash App or buying your girl a coffee. Hey y'all, I just want to pop in here and have another conversation about these decenter men weirdos. The problem with a lot of these corners of the decenter men movement isn't that women are prioritizing themselves. And I've said this before. I don't have an issue with you making sure that you take care of you. Everyone should prioritize their own well-being, because how are you going to pour into others if your cup is empty? It's not reasonable to run yourself ragged for the sake of others, because even in that plight, you're gonna fail. Because how can you take care of others when you yourself have nothing left to give, if you've given it all? I don't have an issue with the idea of taking care of oneself. The problem is that for some people, decenter men has become indistinguishable with resenting men. There is a huge difference between having standards, focusing on your goals, and refusing unhealthy relationships, and viewing men as inherently selfish, treating heterosexual relationships as burdens, and encouraging women to become cynical about family, marriage, and motherhood. Let's make that comparison. Let's really have a deep dive into decentering men versus resenting men. The original idea is somewhat reasonable. Even the title of it is a bit wonky. Why can't we just say you're centering yourself? Why does it have to, ironically, be about decentering men when it should just be about centering yourself? But I digress. The original concept is reasonable. Don't build your entire identity around male validation. That's fair enough. But for some people, this movement has evolved, or better yet, devolved into something else entirely. Instead of teaching women how to build fulfilling lives, it often revolves around discussing how terrible men are, how much men just ruin your lives, how you should avoid books written by men, how you should avoid anything tied to a man, even though that means you would have to avoid literally everything, because even you as a person were half made by a man. Instead of teaching women how to build fulfilling lives, they focus it entirely on how much they hate men, how terrible men are. And at that point, men are still the center of the conversation. Despite all this decenter men nonsense, it's still centered around men, even if it's in a negative way. Regardless of your experiences, regardless of whatever it is that you've been through, men are still human beings. They're not cartoon villains, okay? A reoccurring theme is this idea that men are just naturally selfish, emotionally stunted, and incapable of empathy, which is so ironic because you're literally showing a lack of empathy towards men when you say this. So you're accusing men of not being empathetic, but you yourself can't empathize with the struggles that men go through. You yourself cannot empathize with the idea that men are complex people, that men are just like us, complex, and have experiences that shape who they are.
Stop trying to rationalize a man's poor behavior. Well, if he hadn't gone through this, or if he wasn't this way, then he wouldn't be this way towards me. Well, if this hadn't happened, he wouldn't have been like, if none of those things had have happened, he would still be that way because he's just awful. That's who he is at his core. Okay? Stop trying to make sense of it. He is that way because he wants to be that way.
And this whole, men are just evil, it ignores basic reality. People, in general, are shaped by their experiences. Men and women both have strengths, weaknesses, traumas, blind spots, positives, negatives. Like, I shouldn't have to say all this, but people, they just think in the black and white. They cannot think outside of, it's either this or that. It's either men bad or women bad, or men good or women good. Like, they can't rationalize the idea that people are nuanced. Even with somebody that you hate so much, I'm sure that we can find some kind of redeemable characteristic, something that is positive about that person. Most people, if not all, are multifaceted. No one is just entirely evil. Everyone has good and bad to them. Now, for some people, the bad outweighs the good. For other people, sometimes the good outweighs the bad, but people are nuanced in who they are. If someone believes all negative behaviors from women is caused by social circumstances, but all negative behavior from men is caused by male nature, that's not a real analysis. Okay, that's just a bias. And similarly, like I would say on the opposite side for the, well, what about the red pill community? What about the Myrons of the world? Understand, I keep that same energy. I'm not you. So any male that is walking around thinking that all women are just inherently all evil, that there's no redeemable thing about women, and that men are just everything positive in the world, y'all are two sides of the same dumbass coin. Both of y'all deserve each other. And that's probably why y'all feel the way that you do, because you keep running into each other. You keep attracting to each other because you're the same. I would keep that a buck across the board. If you're unable to see that people are nuanced regardless of their sex, you're slow. I'm sorry. The IQ is not IQing, okay? Another problem is the tendency to minimize the roles of fathers.
They would get on the internet, I'm doing what I gotta do to be a part of my kid's life. I'm doing what I gotta do to be a part of my kid's life. My baby mama make it so hard for me to see my kids. Man, shut up. Shut up. When you lay down with dogs, you get up with fleas. You don't get a cookie because you're trying to be an active participant in your children's lives. Shut up.
Another problem with this whole movement is that they tend to minimize the role fathers play in their children's lives. Many fathers, they work long hours, they sacrifice for their families, they provide emotional support, financial support, security, and they try their best to remain actively involved with their children. Now, I want to make sure I make this distinction. I'm not talking about the deadbeats, okay? The Abbas of the world. I'm not talking about deadbeats, okay? I'm not talking about those who will only be in the child's life if they're with the mother, or those who just go around planting seeds everywhere and then they don't water them or nurture them after the fact. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the real men who actually take the role of being a father seriously, regardless of who the mother is. They are going to show up and show out for their children. But unfortunately, again, with the black and white thinking, they only focus on saying that men are just terrible fathers. They don't show up. Oh, if they do show up, what? You want a cookie? You want a cookie for doing what you're supposed to do? But let it be a woman that's doing exactly that, what she's supposed to do, and they will sing her praises. They will say, oh my God, she is such a goddess. Look at her. She deserves better. They will sit over here and glaze women for doing the bare minimum of what they're supposed to do, but let a man do the bare minimum of what he's supposed to do, and it's like, you want a cookie? That's what I said earlier, a bias. Either you're looking at both situations the same, as you want a cookie for doing the bare minimum, or we're going to sing the praises of adults who take on the responsibility of having children and then they do what they're supposed to do and then praise them for doing such. But when you have this, well, when the woman does it, I'm going to praise it, but when the man does it, I'm going to just scoff at it, then you're just a biased individual who can't think outside of themselves. And you're not empathetic, even though, like I said, they want to say how men are not empathetic, but this is peak apathy towards the men that want to be fathers and show up for their children. And oftentimes these same heifers will portray fathers as optional, as secondary, even though a lot of these same broads have daddy issues, okay? A lot of women are walking around with full-blown, full-grown daddy issues, but will sit over here and talk about how fathers are optional, how fathers are secondary, how it's all about the mother, even though they have deep daddy issues. It's the irony for me. And this attitude, it just hurts families, and mostly it hurts the children.
I'm 37 years old. The one piece of advice that I really want y'all to just listen to and take heed to, and you know, bury it deep in your brain. Men are optional. Men and children are optional. They are not required parts of life. Say it with me. Optional.
A lot of these decenter men broads, they frame relationships as a loss. These folks will talk about marriage and relationships as though women are constantly being exploited.
Some woman somewhere has worked all day from sun up to sundown. She's gone to her job. She's got the children up, got them ready for school, fixed breakfasts, fixed lunches, ran errands, bought the groceries, cooked the food, helped with homework, helped get the kids bathed and ready for bed. All day. All day, her time has been dedicated to taking care of someone else. And she's probably just now getting out of the shower, and she's going to have to slide into her bed and have sex with a man. I couldn't imagine.
The message becomes, if you're giving anything to a man, you're losing. But healthy relationships, they require mutual investment, okay? Both people are contributing, both people are sacrificing, and guess what? Both people are benefiting. When every act of care is framed as oppression, healthy relationships become impossible. And this negativity, it just feeds itself. Any movement built around negative experiences are only going to attract hurt people, okay? Y'all are gonna create a circle jerk of hurt. There is a danger when your pain becomes your identity. And we see this with all sorts of groups. The colorism people, where they make colorism their identity. You see this with the super lefty people, where they make anything that's logical a trigger, okay? You saying that men are men and women are women, oh my God, you're triggering me. Like, when you make your pain your entire identity, instead of healing, you join communities where you end up reinforcing your bitterness. You never learned how to heal from those problems because you become the problem, and healing the problem would be you losing yourself at that point. You see what I'm saying? When you make your problem your identity, solving the problem means you will lose yourself. So what they'll do is that they'll congregate into communities where all they do is just reinforce that the problem exists and that it can never be solved and that they will always be a victim. And the result is a feedback loop where every bad story confirms the worldview and every good story is dismissed as an exception. Or this is what they'll say, well, they're just lying about it. For instance, any woman that comes out and she's, and I say this in air quotes because I have an issue with the whole trad wife thing, because you're not really fully traditional. You're somewhat trad, okay? That would be a more accurate term. You're somewhat of a trad wife. You're resembling a trad wife. You're not entirely a trad wife. But that's a conversation for another day. They will see a woman get on here and she's promoting a traditional lifestyle, cooking, cleaning, caring for the kids, caring for the man, and she's as happy as can be. And what they'll say is, oh, just wait in a few years and she'll come out and she's gonna tell us how terrible the man was. She's gonna tell us how terrible the life was. That's what they do. They sit around waiting for these women to have bad experiences, and they sit back and they hope that she's having bad experiences behind the scenes, because any ounce of happiness, living the life that they think is impossible, living the life that they think is unobtainable, means that maybe it actually is possible and maybe it's just them. Maybe they're the reason why they can't find that type of happiness with a man and with themselves. So anytime they see a woman that is traditional-ish, okay, traditional-ish on the internet and promoting it and saying how happy she is, they think that secretly behind the scenes, she's miserable. And that's what they'll say. They'll say, oh, she's miserable behind the scenes. Oh, she's a slave. She's this, she's that. She just doesn't know what she doesn't know. She'll join us one of these days. Even the positive stories, they're not just dismissed as an exception. They're completely written off as fiction. They don't believe it. They don't believe that a woman can be happy being a wife and a mother. They can't fathom it, because the idea of that completely destroys their worldview that men bad.
I don't think y'all really understand, when it comes to decentering men, it goes beyond just your own personal romantic relationships with men. It also goes to your sons. And one thing that I've noticed, a lot of women will get on this app and they'll say things like, oh, I cooked dinner for me and my husband, boyfriend, fiance, whatever, and it should have lasted us 2 to 3 days, including like having enough to take for lunch, yada, 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 yada. But he ate it all in one sitting. So it wasn't even enough for me to pack for lunch or have leftovers. And you'll have women in the comments that are like, well, that's why I pack my food, my lunch before I even serve up dinner. You shouldn't even have to do that. But then on the other side of that, I would see women on this app talking about how, a prime example, a lady, she made spaghetti. Her son fixed his plate. He had enough spaghetti to feed 3 people and 6 pieces of garlic bread. He was a teenager, but he's a child. All of this behavior is learned. He didn't just become an adult and become super selfish like that. He's been selfish his entire life. And he's been enabled to be selfish. Y'all were raised selfish boys and then be surprised when they are selfish grown adult men. And that's the part that I'm not quite understanding.
And I find it so disgusting how they're going around saying that you need to decenter your sons. Like, they're not going around saying that you need to decenter your daughters, or that your daughters are inherently selfish and they've been selfish their whole life. No, it's only the sons. Let me decenter my son. Why? So he can grow up and have a mother wound? Why? So we can grow up and be the exact type of man that y'all complain about? A lot of these males out here who are terrible, they have mother wounds, okay? They watch their mom get ran through by random men. They watch their moms put them last. Okay, every single time they watch their moms prioritize some random man that they found at the club or found at the convenience store or found down the street over them, their son. So for y'all to get out here and say, yeah, you need to decenter your sons. You need to decenter your son. Understand, you're just telling selfish broads to continue to do what they've been doing, which is not centering their sons. Maybe if you poured more into your sons, then they wouldn't grow up to be selfish. They wouldn't grow up to desire a mother when they're really looking for a romantic partner. Maybe, just maybe, they might grow up to have healthy relationships with women because they have a healthy relationship with their mom. Anytime you hear these weirdos say, decenter your sons, understand they are part of the problem. They're the very reason why these men out here are moving mad. They're the very reason why these men out here are moving like women, like broads. They're moving like their mothers. Very selfish. And the irony is, this heifer is telling women to be selfish while calling men selfish. She does not see the irony in any of it. Nor does she see the irony in her being as big as she is, talking about somebody else eating too many bowls of spaghetti. Sis, you look like the entire factory of spaghetti. What are we talking about here? While you're over here trying to chin check a growing boy for eating however much he's eating when you look the way that you do. I can tell you're selfish. I can tell you're selfish by looking at you. Cynicism is not empowerment. Being cautious is one thing, okay? I'm not saying that you need to go out there and be naive. I'm not saying that. You should use pattern recognition, but that should not turn you cynical. Being permanently cynical is so bad. Some people present distrust, hostility, and emotional detachment as signs of strength, but really it's weakness. You're afraid. You're afraid to be vulnerable. You're afraid to trust. Honestly, that's weakness. People who are brave put themselves in vulnerable positions when it makes sense. Not just willy-nilly, but when it makes sense. I am my most vulnerable with my man. He has seen me at my worst. He has seen me at my best. When a man treats you with so much love and care when you are vulnerable with him, it makes you feel so safe. It makes you feel so seen. But if you've never experienced that, then what I'm describing to you is unfathomable. You think it doesn't exist. Instead, you'll coach other women to completely distrust, completely be hostile, and be emotionally detached and say that that is you being strong. That is you being a powerful woman. But being able to be vulnerable with somebody that you trust is a powerful thing. Constantly expecting the worst from others, I'm gonna be honest, it's not freedom. That's you putting yourself into a little box and then forcing the people around you into small little boxes themselves. Again, black and white thinking. And we already know what black and white, what that looks like. There's no color, there's no nuance, there's no gray, there's no gradient, there's no nothing. It's just one or the other. That's why in The Giver, it starts out black and white and then they slowly introduce the color into the novel, into the movie. And this level of cynicism is a sign that old wounds are still controlling your outlook. You are a slave to your old wounds. You are a slave to your daddy issues. You're a slave to your mommy issues. You're a slave to your bad experience with your last boyfriend. You are a slave to the bad experience you had in your marriage. You are entangled with your pain. And honey, you gotta let it go. Okay, you gotta let it go at some point and actually heal. So what does empowerment for women really look like? We can go down the list. Financial stability, okay, that's across the board, empowerment for everybody. Emotional maturity, again, across the board. Healthy boundaries, good decision making, strong families and friendships, and choosing quality relationships. Honestly, this isn't just empowerment for women, okay? A lot of these things are universal. They're empowering for both. But unfortunately, these decenter men broads, they obsess over the same people they claim to not need. So in conclusion, y'all, the strongest women, they don't need to hate men. They don't need to view relationships as oppression. They don't need to convince every other woman to be as cynical as they are. If you are one of those women that just does not want to be in a relationship, does not want to have a family, that is fine. I am perfectly fine with people recognizing what they truly want. It's one thing to make that decision for yourself. It's another thing to be anti-natalist. It's another thing to try to tell other women who would want relationships, no, you shouldn't want that. That's where the line is. Because if you're a woman out there and you're watching this and you feel attacked because I'm talking about all these things with the relationships and you're one of those women that do not want relationships, you don't want to have a family, you just want to do your own thing, understand this is not an attack on you. It's one thing if that's what you want, but you're cool with people having what they have. You're cool with women wanting relationships. You're cool with women wanting to be mothers. You do not make it your mission to belittle women that want relationships with men. You don't make it your mission to belittle women that want to be mothers. If you are what I just described, this is not an attack on you. This is specifically for the decenter men broads who make it their mission to be extremely anti-man. But y'all, I am curious to hear you guys' thoughts down below. How do you feel about this video? Do you agree with me where it's like, yeah, these decenter men broads are some of the most selfish, apathetic individuals you will ever come across, and that making your pain your identity is one of the worst things you can do for your own sake? Or do you disagree with me where it's like, no, Sandra, you're male identified and you just make your whole identity about men and you're a pick-me? I don't know. What other dumb comments they're gonna leave under this video? Go off, my abandoned sisses. Go off. If you like the video, like the video. The more you interact with it, the more it gets pushed out into the algorithm. Also, hype the video if that's for you, okay? If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. If you're feeling a little extra generous, the link is in the description to buy your girl a coffee. Thank you guys so much, and I will see y'all with the next one. Deuces.